Hi everyone, and welcome to another monthly update where I tell you all the latest details about my LED projects, what I worked on and what comes next. So let's directly get started with what I worked on in October, shall we? First, let's talk about GlowPrinter, this resin 3D printer case which I worked on for quite a few months now and which I already tried to finish a few months ago. However, first of all, I bought the wrong material as it turns out. Something that looked like acrylic and felt like acrylic, but it wasn't, and therefore also was not compatible with a laser cutter, which I needed to actually cut the plates into the case shape. And then when I did get the right material, it took a long time before I was able to get access again to a laser cutter that was large enough for cutting these plates. But thankfully that is a thing of the past now. Thanks to Motion Lab, I was able to laser cut the plates and then build them up together at home. And while I'm not 100% happy with the results, I'm pretty happy with it. It glows really nicely, it has this really interesting look that you, from the outside, without the LEDs on, you cannot see what's inside, only when you turn on the LEDs. And it's also very stable. The only two issues that really bother me are that, first of all, the door magnets are quite bad. I mean, opening and closing the door is a bit of a hassle. And the other thing is that the fan for sucking out the fumes towards the window, it's actually too weak. So it does improve the situation with the resin smell in the room, but it doesn't completely solve it. I just guess I need to buy a better fan that's stronger, so I can completely fix that issue. But besides that, it's a great case, and like all of my LED projects, you can download them on my GitHub repo. It's open source, so you can also find an instruction there on how you can build yourself, download all the necessary files for that, and of course, feel free to customize it and improve it in whatever way you want. Next, let's talk about GlowLight, basically a small version of GlowTower, the flow lamp that I created that has this beautiful acrylic frosted tube to diffuse the light very nicely. But unlike GlowTower, GlowLight was designed to be placed on your desk or some other kind of furniture. One of the big design changes I made was replacing the power source. Originally I had this huge power supply integrated, which required a much larger case, and also connecting some wires to a power supply which doesn't have any plastic case around it, which, if the wiring is done wrong, can actually be quite dangerous and possibly result in a fire. And replacing the power cable was very unpractical. But I found a solution for all of these problems: USB-C. I must say, I used to be quite skeptical about USB-C a while ago, considering that my previous laptop had issues with the USB-C cables not sticking into it very well anymore after a while. But once I heard that the EU is trying to push a law to make it mandatory to integrate the USB-C as a power source in a lot of mobile devices, it did remind me that, hey, actually, yes, I could use USB-C as a power source in my LED projects. And that's what I did with this tiny USB-C board, which can give out 5 volt at up to 3 amps. Which is perfect for my LED strips, and it's also way safer than the previous power supply that I used. The case is also much smaller now as well, and this is like way more universal. I mean, there are probably already multiple power supplies, laptops, desktop PCs, external batteries, and other devices where you can just plug in the GlowLight using a USB-C cable, and then it glows. Nothing else to do. And yes, of course, these design changes don't only apply to the GlowLight, but also to GlowTower as well. But supplying LEDs with power is not the only interesting thing about USB-C. Because it turns out you can also use USB-C to just transmit data between a microcontroller and to an LED strip, without any additional microcontroller needed on the other side. I just used the data plus and data minus pins and connected them on the LED strip side with the data pin. And voila, a simple small plug which can connect into whatever direction you want with pretty much whatever USB-C cable that you want. And this means I will now also add USB-C to the GlowTube and the GlowHub, which is powering and controlling the LEDs in this project. And this is gonna make it like so much easier to set up everything and also disconnect everything. And if in case you do end up having issues with a cable, you could just easily replace it without opening up everything. Now let's talk about GlowBand, or as you previously have known it, GlowOS, the LED wristband for dancing and long-term exposure photography. I changed the name since GlowBand makes much more sense for an LED wristband than suggesting that your whole arm would glow. Also, I tried a new prototype to see if I can combine a waterproof case with the ability to press the buttons from the outside to basically change between different LED modes. However, turns out it did not work. The reason is that this 3D printed material that I use was just not flexible enough, but I think also the whole design of the case in this way doesn't really make much sense. After all, I guess there's a reason why basically all the buttons you see are typically like separate parts that are integrated into a main case and then combined with a water sealing, like for example using some rubber band underneath the button. And that's also what I'm gonna do now. But also if that would be solved, there's still one more issue that really bothers me, and that's the size of the case. Because of the size of the battery that I always use so far in the prototypes. It was always a 1000 mAh battery, which was the equivalent of maybe 9 to 10 hours of glowing in the dark. But using multiple small batteries and connecting them manually by like soldering the wires together doesn't sound like a very safe way of doing it either. However, someone at Exine, the local hackspace nearby me, suggested another idea. Designing and building a custom PCB board that's flexible, that has the microcontroller and all the buttons on it, all the LEDs on it, but also places and connectors for multiple tiny LiPo batteries. So basically the whole connecting the batteries is done directly on a PCB board instead of like manually soldering something yourself together. Which I think is a great idea. It also makes it way easier to then replace existing batteries in case they do after a while wear out and lose capacity. In this way they're also much safer connected, and the weight and the thickness is also nicely distributed, while you basically wrap the LED strip with the batteries and the board around your arm basically. And now let's talk about the software that runs all the LED projects that I work on. So originally I started coding my own software, which didn't go very well. And then I heard from someone at Exine about WLED, this open source library to control LED strips, and which was way more advanced and way better working than what I created up to that point. So based on that I created a fork of WLED, so basically a clone of it. And more specifically of the sound reactive fork of WLED, which means a version that was able to react to music, so you have like animations that basically then react to the music, which is great for parties. And I called it GlowCore. However, I renamed it now to GlowOS, since that way more describes what it actually is, an operating system to control LEDs. And while I was recently wondering why haven't there been any updates to the sound reactive fork of WLED, I then noticed that there actually have been plenty of updates. I was just paying attention to the wrong part of the code. There haven't been any changes to the stable branch of it, but plenty of improvements to the development branch of the library. So I tested that one, and I must say I'm impressed. The animations which react to music feel way smoother and way better in general, and also much easier to customize in a way that's understandable for the user. However, that doesn't change my major complaint about WLED, which was always the interface design. So this, among other features like automatic software updates, is something I want to integrate into my version of WLED, which is GlowOS. And I would of course also happily contribute back to the original WLED library as well. Yeah, stay tuned for more updates on the software in the next coming months. And last but not least, there was one more topic I was working on that was very new to me. Price calculations. figuring out at what price I can sell my LED products while also being able to make a living long term doing that. Yeah, so an unsurprising learning is that, of course, since I'm not mass producing in some Chinese factory, I cannot sell my LED products for stupidly low prices, which is fine, but it also means that I have to pay especially more attention to making sure that the product quality is also accordingly to the higher price that I'm gonna sell the LED products for. In practice, this means I will have to spend more time on further improving my LED products, which means, for example, creating custom PCBs for all of them and build versions of the GlowLight and GlowTower case made out of beautiful wood. And as long as I'm not finished with that, I will see that I will possibly sell some prototypes to some very excited friends and other excited followers, basically. So yeah, that was everything that happened in October. So now let's talk about what comes next in November. First, I'm gonna make more improvements to the case of GlowLight and GlowTower. Also, I will add a USB-C to the GlowTube, so no one has to go ever again through this pain of replacing the cables, which have been integrated into the case so far, and which are, let's say, not comfortable to remove up to now. And after that, I will focus on designing the custom PCBs for my LED products. This way I can further reduce the size of the products, make it even easier to build them. And since I will make all the PCB designs open source as well, other people can also use the PCBs in their own projects and further customize them if they want as well. And another new topic I want to look into is how to use a CNC machine for processing wood. More specifically for building the cases of the GlowLight and GlowTower out of wood. So I need to see where I can get access to a CNC machine since I don't have one at home. And depending on the progress I make on all of these things, I might also work on building the Etsy webshop. But again, first I have to make sure that the product quality actually matches the higher price, as well as that the product doesn't feel like a prototype anymore. So yeah, that was it for this monthly update, a bit longer than usual, but I hope you enjoyed it and hope to see you in the next one, and I'm really looking forward to what comes next in November. Up to that point, have a great time and happy glowing. Bye.